Staunton State Park is a legacy of Francis H. Staunton. As beneficiaries, present and future generations are entrusted with this land to enjoy, protect, and treasure as she did. The park has a rich history, and rangers, with the help of the Friends of Staunton State Park, a nonprofit group that works in partnership with the park, are working to restore the Staunton's Cabin and other historic structures on the property.
I'm Zach Taylor. I'm the park manager at Staunton State Park, and we're right outside of the namesake, the Staunton Cabin. The history of the park is what makes it the park. You know, obviously the Stauntons donating the land, part of Francis's will was just that. She wanted to donate the land back to the people of Colorado, the visitors to the state, to see and understand how they lived in the early 1900s and then homesteaded the area. And they completed the cabin in 1918. And so we're here on site trying to restore it and trying to ensure that future generations have the ability to see not only the cabin and the land that the Stauntons homesteaded, but understand what that looked like and how that practice ended up being what is now a state park. Our Friends of Staunton State Park, which is a nonprofit organization that supports us, raised funds through the State Historical Society as well as through local donors to restore the cabin. And in 2021, they completed basically restoring the roof. We hired an organization called HistoriCorps that does historical restoration. They're based actually out of Morrison, to come up here, and through all volunteer work, we were able to remove the old roof, replace a lot of the trusses, put some support braces and beams inside, and then place the cedar shingle roof that you see there. We're working towards raising funds to continue that restoration process. This winter we're working with HistoriCorps to actually restore the windows and the doors, and so hopefully by this summer we'll be able to open up the cabin and have it visible to all the public so that they can see what the interior of the cabin actually looks like. So in 2014, the park manager prior to me applied for and received designation on the National Historic Registry for 7 other structures within the park. As you travel along the Staunton Ranch Trail, you'll come to the Historic Cabins Trail. The trails themselves are designed and built with destinations in mind, and we obviously want to honor Staunton's will and Francis's will in the realm of showing people what it was like to homestead. So the Staunton Ranch Trail is the trail that dives right through the middle and the heart of the park. And connects you to the Historic Cabin Trail as well as the Old Mill Trail. This year we opened up 2 more miles of road, which actually brings the public right to the Staunton's Cabin in the Lazy V parking lot.
Thanks to the new road and that parking lot, visitors have greater access to the heart of what is now the 3,828-acre state park. From there, trails lead visitors to each of these cabins on the National Historic Registry. Starting at the Staunton Cabin, which lies at the beginning of the Historic Cabin Trail, and again was the original homestead cabin of the Stauntons. Francis Staunton willed the homestead to the state of Colorado in 1960. In 1986, the family cabin and 1,720 acres were officially donated to Colorado State Parks. Subsequent parcels of land were added over the years to make up the current acreage. The Blaine cabin was constructed in the late 1800s. John and Bessie Blaine purchased 80 acres, including this cabin, in 1906. The Stauntons purchased the land and the cabin in late 1918, and it was used by summer camp leaders and their families.
It's one of the oldest cabins, and actually was one of the first on the property, and was one of the cabins that the Stauntons stayed in while they built their cabin.
The Richardson cabin was constructed between 1922 and 1931. Originally built by a Scotsman as a workshop, this cabin was frequently used by the Richardson family from Louisiana as a getaway. Nicknamed Mushroom by the Stauntons, this cabin likely housed patients and later served as a recreation and craft area for summer camps.
You'll see the Richardson cabin, which is a 2-story cabin that was built with Scouts and Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts in mind. So when those camps came up, they would stay in that cabin.
The Brola cabin was constructed between 1922 and 1936. This demure one-room cabin with a sink and hardwood floor was constructed as a caretaker's quarter during the time the Stauntons had patients at the ranch.
And one of Francis's friends, good friends, who also sang opera was Jeannie Brola. So you'll see that cabin that Francis named for her and her husband when they would come visit her.
The shower house was constructed between 1922 and 1936. Constructed on unpeeled, half-round logs and fitted with metal piping and shower curtains, this rustic shower house offered running, gravity-fed well water for Dr. Staunton's patients.
Again, the Stauntons were doctors and at the time treated tuberculosis patients. And so part of the treatment and part of the safety of everyone up here was to have facilities and resources that were exterior and outside.
The policeman's cabin was constructed in 1922. This cabin was named after Denver officer Les Ballou, who utilized the cabin while providing security and caretaker services for the Staunton family ranch.
During the era of Prohibition, there was a policeman that would come up and ensure that stills and distilleries were not being built and along the creeks and stuff up here, and so he would stay in that cabin. So the Stauntons named it after, so to speak, the policeman.
The bunkhouse was constructed in the 1930s. Archibald Staunton purchased the mill in the 1930s and built the bunkhouse to house 6 workers. These workers assisted in operation of a large cable system powered by an old Studebaker engine to transport logs across the valley. The adjacent sawmill was constructed in the 1920s. Sawmill operations began in the Elk Creek Valley starting in the 1860s by Swedish and Norwegian loggers. Unique to this sawmill is a cable log transport system and a 1919 Pierce Arrow car engine designed to generate more torque than the standard steam-powered engine of the day. Lumber from this mill was used for building cabins and other buildings and later for the railroads. The remaining mill structure collapsed in the 1970s.
Archie actually bought land and then built a logging mill and then a bunkhouse to house the loggers themselves. So if you travel up the old mill trail, you'll come across the actual sawmill, which has collapsed, but the bunkhouse still stands. So those cabins and those structures are on the National Historic Registry and are within Staunton State Park. So you can reach out to Colorado Parks and Wildlife through our main website, as well as you can go to friendsofstauntonstatepark.org. And through there you'd be able to either make some donations and contributions to support the restoration of the cabins, as well as you can volunteer. We ask that based on construction, based on the history of the park, we love to have folks come and share their experiences or their expertise and be a volunteer and a steward of the park and the resource that we protect.